It's The List and your boy with Jimmy Van and Sean Ross Sapp.
What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp here, and I am still in beautiful Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Behind me is the Sky Dome. I'm here. I'm watching the Reds and the Blue Jays play, but that didn't keep me from doing my job. Despite everything, despite me on my own dime, flying myself to Toronto, the home of my boss, Jimmy Van. He's here, by the way. You all can see him. He can't see himself. He can't see the Sky Dome. I love it because he's got to watch all this back, guys. He can't see what's behind me.
Okay, this was intentional what you just did.
Oh, no, it wasn't. I knew you would think that. I knew you would think that, too. I knew you would be like, oh, that green screen, it messed up Skype and everything. It wasn't intentional.
I think that you're claiming that I can't see this because you want to put shit up on your shower curtain and you don't want me to see it, and that's why you claimed. So for those of you that are just tuning in, we're going almost 15 minutes late because Sean claimed he had technical difficulties and, I'm not able to show you the playback and blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as I can see him without his little fancy magic, I can see the shower curtain. You deliberately are saying, oh, sorry, man, I can't get the playback to work because you want to do all this bullshit and I'm not going to be able to know what you're doing. So just know that when
I can verify with Nigel afterwards that my Wirecast virtual camera will not show up in Skype. It was being really glitchy, like it was locking up and stuff, so I had to. It was
when we play this back. If I was in the middle of a serious topic and you're putting ponies on the shower curtain behind you, you and I are going to have words off the air. So
the roof is open. It's a beautiful Wednesday afternoon here at the Sky Dome. I'll never call it the Rogers Center.
Is that why you said on Twitter today, I wish I was at the Sky Dome or something? Because you had all this
bullshit. I wish I was at the Sky Dome like every day. It's a beautiful stadium. I grew up playing for a Blue Jays Little League team, and it was when they won back-to-back titles. So I was a bit of a Blue Jays fan. Now,
so you know what's awesome, Sean?
I got to say, the tea here at Sky Dome is beautiful. And look, Jimmy, they even gave me this Cincinnati Reds 19... What?
I have a wonderful team of people.
You have a wonderful team of rats. I'm going to stop by and bring them all some cheese.
I have a wonderful team of people that make sure that I can know what's going on at all times. So for you audio listeners, one of them just brought me in an iPad with the show going, so I'm able to keep tabs on whatever nonsense Sean is up to.
Bunch of jamokes. But look at this. I was able to buy my Cincinnati Reds 1990 World Champions Collector's Cup.
Wow, they had it in Toronto at the Sky Dome.
The tea is actually delicious here. The brewmaster tells me that he makes it with maple syrup.
Very good, very good. I'm glad you're enjoying yourself.
So I guess we got a show to do, Jimmy.
Yeah, I guess we do. Sorry, I'm just preparing my iPad that I can watch the show on as we go here.
Oh, boy.
So, so you're currently, it looks like you're kind of floating above the Sky Dome, sort of.
I have good seats.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Do you? You have an aerial view?
I dropped your name, Jimmy.
Did you?
I did. It gets you places here in Toronto.
Yeah, really. Actually, I should tell you a quick story. Do you want to hear a quick Sky Dome story?
I like stories.
So the first time I ever went to the Sky Dome, I was 19 years old, and I think they had just opened up the Sky Dome a year or two prior, and I didn't have tickets for the game. I waited till the game was out. I just wanted to go in, kind of like you. I wanted to go in and see it. And so I walked in as people are coming out, and there was a security guard there, and he stopped me from getting in. Do you remember Kelly Gruber?
I do.
So Kelly Gruber played for the Blue Jays. Kelly Gruber was being interviewed on live TV, like off in the distance. And I said to the security guard, oh, no, I'm just waiting for my cousin. He's over there being interviewed. And the guard bought it, and I got in and ended up getting into like the media boxes and all that stuff. Yeah.
To me, that is like a lot of people want to go to Wrigley. A lot of people want to go to Yankee Stadium. To me, there's some sort of connection with the Sky Dome and my childhood that I associate with. Probably because, those were star-studded teams. It was the first stadium of its kind. Right. Plus, Blue Jays jerseys kick ass. The colors kick ass. I'm rather fond. If I had a second favorite baseball team, it'd probably be the Blue Jays.
How do you like the red one they do on Canada Day?
It's okay. It's okay.
I have one of those.
They're
I should send you one of those.
You should. They're about to sweep the
Canada
Reds,
one.
by the way. They're about to sweep the Reds. There's not a lot of people here, as you can see. It's weird.
Based on your angling, you're basically floating from the ceiling. So how can you even tell?
One of the perks.
There you go.
So
how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I have a wedding to be in this Saturday. It's my wife's best friend's, and then I get to come back and do UFC 212. I'm pumped for that show too.
How are you going to style your hair? Because I know you're trying to grow it, so you're in the awkward phase right now.
I am. I'm going to be in the awkward stage for a long time. I don't know. Probably just like this.
So are you really legitimately looking to become Jesus? Like, is that what you're trying to do with
I'm already box jump Jesus. I'm not trying to be actual Jesus, although I did wish blessings upon many last night on Twitter.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that. I will. You know what? I'm going to put you over because Sean showed me a video of a box jump onto a car. When was that, Sean?
Last year. And to his credit, you didn't get a running start. You basically took like one or two steps, and he jumped onto the top of the car. So that was impressive. Yeah, you know. I definitely didn't nickname myself that. I would never do something that pretentious.
No, you would never do that. No. No. Let's get right into the Sean Ross Sapp heel turn. So when we were starting when we were starting this today, I didn't know whether to refer to you as Sean Ross Sapp today or whether I should call you Hollywood Hogan.
Or how about Sean Ross Sass?
I like Hollywood Hogan better. I don't know. Because, so hear me out on this. So the previous sites that you worked for, I did not visit those sites on the regular basis, and I still don't. And so I wasn't familiar with your work in those days. Some of our listeners and readers now knew you from those days. And according to what some of them are saying, what I've kind of gotten out of this is that back in those days on those sites, you were red and yellow Hogan. And then when you came over to Fightful.com, you dropped the big leg on Randy Savage, and now you're black and white Hogan. So what happened? I want to read a couple quotes, and I'm not going to mention names. I'm just going to read a couple quotes. One guy said, "Don't like the snarky change in you." And somebody else said, "You're acting like JBL. We want the SRS we all respected and followed back." What happened, man? Like, what led to you becoming an asshole from the time that you left your last site to coming over to Fightful.com? What happened?
How much merch did Hollywood Hogan sell once that change happened?
Oh, a lot.
The change needed to happen.
But you're not selling shit. So how does that work?
Selling everything.
Jinder Mahal selling more T-shirts in India than you're selling currently anywhere in the world.
Well, God damn, I'd hope so.
Well, it's the India market.
It is.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what they're talking about, which is funny because I had one person say that I'm acting like JBL, while another person said, "There goes Sean and Anna pushing their social justice warrior agenda on us." And I'm like, you can't be both of those. You can't be JBL and a social justice warrior.
So when you were at those other sites, were you, because this is how I'm kind of trying to equate it in my head, were you the even keel Michael Cole, and then when you came here, you became the Jerry Lawler feud Michael Cole?
No. If you look at what happened with that comment, that person says that he surmised that based on my stance of Mauro Ranallo about how I no longer cared about his situation with WWE because he took a financial settlement. The reason I said that is because before this, he was talking about it. His friends were all tweeting about it. They offered him an amount of money to shut up about it. He took that money, and then he shut up about it, and so did his buddies. That leads me to believe that amount of money is enough for him as the person who was personally victimized to just let it go. So I let it go. Now, do I let go what JBL did? No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't because he's an asshole, and he's personally a shitty person. But
so what's ironic about that is that you have just used the terms asshole and shitty person about JBL when at least one person thinks that you're acting like JBL.
Yeah.
So think about how ironic that is. What led to this heel turn, Sean? Is it because I'm a little bit too...
Let me read this comment on the YouTube chat.
Are you drunk with power because you're the managing editor?
Here are a couple of comments. Aaron Hayden, one of our great writers, who I've known for years. Take it for what you will, but SRS is the same as he has always been. God the Bear says, SRS has always been like this. I won't name names, because I'm fond of this person, but his former boss, God bless his soul, is kind of the fun police.
Oh, really?
I mean, yeah. I mean,
you know what that does? That, in a roundabout way, puts me over.
Yeah.
It does.
I mean, I have not made any bones about it. I am given a little more wiggle room here. You want me to be entertaining. I'm not pretending to be this way. This is how I am. If anybody is always stoic and angry and upset, I don't know why you would cover MMA and pro wrestling, because you have to have some sort of sense of humor, some sort of flexibility to do that. I don't like to take everything too literally. There are times when I've done that. There are times when I've taken your advice, and whenever trolls come out, well, you saw how I handle them. And I told him that I hope the Lord rains down blessings upon him.
Oh, come on. That came like 5 minutes after you posted a bunch of other shit.
Inviting him to, like, share the blessings of the... Okay, this troll Jimmy said, and I quote, "It's easy for you to say that now after you have my money from that subscription."
I saw that.
What does that say about this troll, who also said homophobic and sexist things?
He got us confused with another site, obviously. Yeah, he would have had to have.
Either that or you're taking somebody's money.
The only thing I can think of, you know what it could be, Sean? He might have bought the Kentucky Wildcat Ya Boy t-shirt. That could be what it was. Could have been it.
I don't get it. I mean, this is... I don't like to put on acts and stuff. I don't like to do that.
I will say, let me just say this. So we talk about the stupid nicknames every week and the excessive usage of stupid nicknames. I do not want Sean to become Michael Cole or Corey Graves. I don't want you to become that, because they're annoying and they're stupid. And so I'm never going to tell you, because, you know, some people, if they watch the show every week, Sean, they might think Jimmy clearly is telling Sean to say, don't be ridiculous. How dare you? It's trash. People might be thinking, he says them so often. He says them so often that Jimmy must be telling him to say this. And I'm not. That's just kind of who you are.
Oh, well, I mean, when you're on screen for 6-7 hours a week, some of the things you say are going to get repeated. Michael Cole's on screen for like 3 weeks. You don't have to do it that much.
Right.
Especially much in a brief amount of time. Hey, some people are going to like me. Some people aren't. But I try to be polite to everybody. Now, if it's something ridiculous like you're being like JBL because you don't agree with me on a stance about Mauro Ranallo, well, we're going to think different things. And quite frankly, if I think the same thing as everybody else, or me and you think the same way as everybody else or each other, that makes for a pretty boring show.
You're right. And one thing I like about you is that you push back on me when you don't like my ideas. Even though I win in the end, you at least push back on me. And I like that about you, man. And same thing about my team here. Lindsay, one of the girls that you know, I love it when she will question an idea I have if she doesn't like it necessarily. I'm not a yes man kind of guy. I don't want people to be like kissing my ass. I like it when
I know. I got that feeling pretty early on when we did our show. And to be honest, for the first several months I worked for you, I didn't know. Right. I had no idea because I didn't have a lot of even this face-to-face interaction and stuff. Right. I would say that I had as much interaction with a Lindsay. I mean, Nigel, I feel like I've been bunking with for the last month. Yeah. I mean...
Yeah. Well, you know what? Since you just said something, you said not everybody's going to like me and not everybody's going to hate me. That leads me to Vince Russo.
Yeah?
You know what that was, Sean? That was a segue, Sean. I learned from you, man. Yeah. That was a segue. So we got to talk about Vince Russo because, man, what a week this has been. Mm-hmm. So let's do a quick little rundown. I'm not going to say who Vince Russo is because I think everybody knows. Last July, when we started this site, Fightful.com, Vince was the guy we brought in to do stuff for us. He did a once a week podcast. He wrote some articles. He did a Raw review, stuff like that. And it did very well. Especially your podcast did pretty good numbers. But after a few months, it ran its course because Vince didn't like the current product anymore, and he didn't want to talk about it. And his articles were suffering because he just hated everything.
He wrote one in the eyes of a 10-year-old. And the thing is, I had tried to avoid this by in June when it became clear that he and I would be working together again. I said, Vince, let's do a retro show.
Right.
And it's a lot like, it was based on David Bixenspan, a guy I worked with. He would do like Between the Sheets and 605 Pod and stuff like that. And later, Bruce Pritchard's found great success with that, and Tony Schiavone as well. And I thought, Vince, you have enough stories. We could tackle something like that, a show, a person, an angle. He wasn't into it. So, I mean, and we tried this again before he left. We were going to have him review old Raws even. So,
well, when we split amicably. There was no hard feelings. And then what happened was when we decided, I took over the show, and the show started doing pretty good numbers, and now we've expanded it and we've added segments with other guys. So I went to you a couple weeks ago and said, what about Vince? Because he started talking wrestling on his own podcast again after he had stopped. And you reached out to Vince, and he was interested, and then I reached out to him, and I cut a deal with him, and he's back. You did the taping this week. We're going to be doing segments starting today called Russo Reveals, and they're going to be stories about his time working for WWE and WCW and TNA, no current stuff, all the stuff from when he worked for those companies. But one little clip from that taping was about how he reached out to Vince McMahon recently in the last week. So we decided, let's take that clip out because it's more timely, and let's put it up on its own. And it blew up. Like, it's done thousands of views on YouTube, and a bunch of other wrestling sites have picked it up. And I'll tell you one thing I've noticed, and I knew this already, but it's really noticeable now. You want to talk about polarizing.
yeah.
People either love him or hate him. I can't believe some of the hateful comments this guy's getting.
Well,
like,
I
people
mean,
are,
I can, because he's said some shit recently, particularly, that, I don't want associated with. I mean, you know that, and it goes without saying, guys, what Vince Russo says outside of Fightful.com does not reflect us. It does not reflect Jimmy, me. That's him, and I don't approve of a lot of the things that he says. I don't like them. To be quite honest, I'm disgusted by some of the stuff he said. Don't like the types of stuff that he said about Ryan Satin, who's a friend of mine, Wade Keller, who I respect, Dave Meltzer, who I respect. I'm not on board with that stuff, but what Vince and I are going to do is something that, it's like, did I have questions when I first started working with Vince? Oh, yeah. And he would be the first to tell you that I was kind of confrontational when I first worked with him, because my thing was, I'm not compromising my integrity for anybody. Since then, when Vince and I have spoken, it's always been good, with the exception of one argument. And when we work professionally, good stuff happens. And I think that we can at least put forth some entertaining stuff. I'll put it like this. Not everybody at CNN represents everybody else, and that's the same here.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I don't know Vince on a personal level as well as you do, because I've only talked to him about business. But the Vince Russo that I have dealt with has been nothing but a pleasure to work with, honestly. He's been easy to work with. He's been professional. He's been cool to work with. And I know that a lot of people, when we kind of announced we were bringing him back to do stuff on the show, there was not a lot, but there was some negative feedback. And I know certain guys reached out to you and said, what are you doing? So I kind of want to make it clear, we're bringing him back for segments on this podcast to talk about wrestling stories from his time in the WWF, WCW, and TNA. That's why we're bringing him back. We're not here to talk to him about politics, about religion, about what he thinks of the airport.
About wrestling journalism, not touching that one.
No, it's about stories from the past. And again, Vince has always been cool to me, and I know he's always been cool to you. And some of it's one thing if you don't like him, and they can have that opinion if they want. But some of the hateful comments this guy's getting, where people are saying, like, fuck you and go back to New York, and really hateful stuff. And I just think, like, what has he done to you to kind of deserve that? But yeah, like you said, the opinions expressed by Vince do not reflect those of myself, you, Fightful.com. But we're here to tell stories.
I think maybe you're not as plugged into some of his comments as maybe I am, because I got a ton of those DMs. He said some pretty rough stuff, and I have a person that says liberals are so sensitive. It has nothing to do with that. It doesn't have to do with liberal or conservative, or he can dislike those people all he wants. It's his freedom to do so. That doesn't mean I'm going to stand behind any of his statements and stuff. Those are his. Right. He's entitled to them. Doesn't have to be my cup of tea, but we are going to bring you all some nice segments with Vince for that maybe unveil some stuff that haven't been unveiled before.
Yeah.
Hey, it worked with J.J. Dillon. Here's my question.
Yeah.
Do you think J.J. Dillon has any idea he is in the New York Post or the Sun right now?
No, I'm actually going to hit him up later, and the mutual friend that introduced me to JJ, I'm going to call him later and tell him. So, JJ, again, for those of you that might be new to the show, JJ does a segment called Storytime with JJ Dillon. Last week, he talked about The Undertaker and about when Vince McMahon first met him, he had the idea of a Viking character from Mark Calloway, which ended up a year later going to John Nord as the Berserker.
Just a couple months later.
Okay. So we talked about that on the show. We turned it into a news post on Fightful.com. It has been picked up by the UK Sun. It's been picked up by news.com.au, which is a big online news site in Australia. It was picked up by the New York Post. It's crazy. And it was a one-off comment that he made on the podcast. It's, one of those things, man.
That makes me happy because when I talked to J.J. Dillon, the conversation that you and I had was he takes a long time to get into the meat of stuff because he feels like he has to reintroduce people. I got the feeling that he's afraid of being forgotten.
Right, yes.
And things like this make me really happy, and I think that when he hears that, he'll be really happy too. I hope I can film with him this week because I haven't heard back from him.
Yeah,
but
we'll figure something out. One more thing about Vince I want to bring up. I saw The Table for 3 episode on the network this week.
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, so I saw it, and it featured Jim Cornette and Eric Bischoff along with Michael Hayes, and Cornette was the catalyst for kind of ripping Vince on the air, and Bischoff would kind of agree with them, and they would kind of joke around back and forth about Vince Russo. I texted Sean and I said, do you want to hit up Vince, see if he wants to tape a little segment commenting on that? And Vince responded and he said, and I'm bringing this up because people might be wondering, is he going to talk about that on this podcast? He responded and he said, not interested, will just piss me off, too old to get pissed off. Ironically enough, I noticed today, we're taping this on Wednesday, the 31st of May, he is exchanging barbs with Eric Bischoff on Twitter now because Bischoff called him a con man. So they've been exchanging barbs. Mm-hmm. But Vince, I don't think is going to talk about that on this show anytime soon. So
yeah. And he shouldn't. I mean,
but later today, we got the first Russo reveals, and it's going to be about D-Generation X, and it was interesting. This is why we wanted him.
I had asked him about the Val Venus thing, about Sean Waltman, who brought up that Vince pitched Val Venus, and he said, well, I'm sure I did, but I can't remember that in particular. Right. But then he went into a very interesting story about the New Age Outlaws.
Yeah, don't tell the whole story now.
I'm not telling a whole damn story.
Yeah, don't do it.
But I mean, I
don't
guess I
can. Don't ruin it, Sean. Don't ruin it, Hollywood.
Do you have a list today? Because before we get into it, I think we're deep enough into this show. We could probably talk a little more about The Undertaker, thanks to our buddy J.J. Dillon.
Sure.
So, guys, I spoke to J.J. Dillon, of course, as always. He wanted to elaborate more on The Undertaker and especially what Vince McMahon thought of The Undertaker initially. So here we go, story time with J.J. Dillon.
When a guy like The Undertaker walks in and he's not found his big break in wrestling until this point, and he had been wrestling for 6 years, does Vince McMahon look at him after that first meeting and say, this is a guy that we'll be able to lean on for a while? Or is it just we'll see how it goes type of thing?
I think it is a work in progress that you may envision a level of success with a guy, but sometimes, I mean, I can relate to the Horseman. That was a spontaneous thing that was not something that was the brainchild of creative. It was a spontaneous thing that the fans picked up on. And we never in our wildest dreams imagined that it would become as big as it became or last as long as it did. Same thing with the individual characters at the WWF/WWE. And The Undertaker, what to me is, and I have so much respect for him professionally and as a person because he is a great guy. But when you think about what he did as that character, he didn't do much, but what he did well. When And he wasn't the first one to walk the top rope as big as he was. Don Jardine, the spoiler, walked the top rope long before The Undertaker did. And the spot where they would do something devastating to him and he would lay in there, and all of a sudden when he would sit up, that roof would blow off the building. Something as simple as that. And then he morphed over time. You know, he became, more tattoos. He became a biker for a while. It was still The Undertaker, but it was something that was added to that, more tools in his toolbox, where he was still doing the same things, but it wasn't just a rehash of the same old thing forever.
Undertaker got a short-lived championship run about a year in. Did that shock you? Because that wasn't the type of thing you saw a lot. I mean, people remember the Ultimate Warrior and stuff, but he was a few years in, and that was even kind of quick. But the Undertaker had a short-lived, couple of day run in 1991. Did it shock you that Vince was so quick to go with him in that spot even?
Not really, because when I first went there, they were running 3 tours every night. And they were doing, I think, 4 major pay-per-views, and then it expanded from there. So wrestling is an athletic soap opera that's 52 weeks out of the year that is never ending. Everything that we see with any television show, regardless of whatever your favorite is, Game of Thrones or whatever, it has a season, and then it has a break, and then it comes back. It tries to recapture their audience, but wrestling never ends. And so that's a challenge from the creative side to perpetuate that. And what you try to avoid is the big highs and the big valleys. You're better off if you can kind of keep a steady thing. And it's still going to be cyclical at times, where you get a little bump because somebody really catches fire, or all of a sudden just things run their course faster than you thought they would, and you don't have something else hot and ready. I think to me, that's why I'm still a fan. It's still the greatest business in the world. But it's like Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant was a great drawing card. You didn't want him going after chasing the world title, because you want the world title on somebody else, so that you have 2 things to put on the marquee: a title match, and wow, the 8th wonder of the world, Andre the Giant. And I think Undertaker would be another example that, yes, he did have a short run as a title thing, but that was, and I don't know where Vince's head was at that time, why he did that, but that was never going to be the focus of what his goal was, to be world champion. He was to be the Undertaker.
Jimmy!
Did you show up late?
Jimmy! What are you doing? I am here at a Toronto medical facility.
How long did we have dead air while you were off doing that?
0. I'm here at a Toronto medical facility, Jimmy. Your wife is giving birth and you're not here.
Why are you all wet?
I ran. I
Ran?
put my suit jacket on. Vetura's here. Zorro's here. Nigel's
Really?
here. Melissa. Lindsay.
Really?
We're all here.
You know what? I need to talk to Lindsay for a minute. Would you mind putting her on camera for me?
No, she didn't sign a release. Sorry. Oh my God. Jimmy,
Okay.
why how am I here and you're not here?
I'm just now seeing the image because our thing is on tape delay. So I'm just now seeing the image. You're really going the extra mile today, man.
I ran at least 3 of them.
Where'd the suit jacket come from all of a
I
sudden?
had it. You think I'm going to the Sky Dome dressed as a scoundrel? You think I'm going to be in town for the birth of your child dressed like a hobo? I may look like one because I had to run. Physically
But your t-shirt's the same. All you did is throw a jacket over top of it.
You have got to get with the style today, Jimmy. Biz cash, my friend. You think I'm going to show up there in a vest?
Good for you, man. Good for you. You're creative.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is amazing.
Jimmy Jr. will be here soon. He'll be here soon. I thought at first when I saw you all wet like that, I thought that you like dove headfirst into the placenta.
That's
I was like,
disgusting,
what the hell
Jimmy.
is going on?
Disgusting.
What the hell is going on?
It is disgusting. I just can't believe this shows you how dedicated Jimmy is to Fightful.com.
Yeah, I told my wife just hold it in for an hour. Like you can give it an hour. You know, I'll be on my way when this is finished.
So we hope to have some more stuff from JJ. Great to hear from him about.
I want to say one thing about what he said. So he was. Yeah. You asked him about the title reign, Taker's title reign. The reason they did that is because they wanted to put over that pay-per-view, the Tuesday in Texas pay-per-view. That's why they did it. Yeah.
Because back then you didn't see a lot of that. You didn't see guys like giving title reigns like a year in. That was unheard of back then.
And for 2 days back then, they didn't really do that either, right?
That's also
but that's why they did it. And when he compared Taker to Andre the Giant, that's a good comparison because that's kind of how Taker was for a lot of years.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, if Undertaker were around these days, I don't know how, like, in the ring, how he would be perceived. Because he didn't do a whole lot back then. As JJ said, he didn't do a whole lot. He evolved, he adapted, and that's a big important aspect of Braun Strowman today. He's got to evolve, and he does.
Right, absolutely.
What's on your list?
I want to talk briefly about the toddler that died from the Batista bomb.
Yeah.
For a minute. So anybody that's not familiar with this, it was a 2-year-old girl named Addie Cook. She died in St. Louis, Missouri. A 24-year-old man has been charged with murder. I'm not sure if that was the father because they never really said so. But the 19-year-old mother has also been charged, named Cheyenne Cook. Father's name, or the man's name, Richard Gamashi. He admitted to police that he was performing wrestling moves on this little girl, including a Batista bomb. The stepfather said that the girl's condition, she looked like she was run over by a car. That was the condition that she was in physically. When I hear stories like this, because now I'm a father of a 2.5-year-old, and you know what's funny, Sean, is before I got married and had a kid, I never wanted to get married and I never wanted to have a kid. I think I've told you this before. And I was never a fan of kids. I never liked kids when I was younger. And if you're at a family function and if a kid came in my direction, I wanted them to kind of go away. I was never a fan. Now that I have a 2.5-year-old girl, she's my world. And when I hear stories like this, that really pisses me off. So I hope that they get justice, and I hope that he gets a few beatings in prison to boot. So
yeah, that's uncalled for. Like, I get it. They're small. You can do the move to them. It's a baby, man.
It's unbelievable. I mean, my kid's 2.5, so not much older than that kid.
Yeah.
I would never, even if it was on a big bed or in a pool, I would never Batista bomb my kid.
Yeah.
Like that's...
Vinny Fernando says they're going to have to start airing those PSAs again. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
That's really, really heartbreaking, man. There are a lot of adults that have came and worked with us, and they can't take the moves right. Really good athletic adults.
Right.
And you know, I'm not a kid guy. I worked and volunteered at a Boys and Girls Club of America for years. I loved that. That's the extent of how I ever wanted to work with kids. But you got to know. I know, not as an adult. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that you would do that to a 2-year-old kid that can't defend themselves and whatever. So I thought that was unfortunate. I wanted to talk about that. Moving on, I want to talk about Jinder Mahal again.
Yeah.
I got a very good question from somebody on the weekend, Sean.
Okay.
What they said to me was, so when we talked about Jinder last week and we talked about the business decision behind him getting the title, and I mentioned that the last tour of India was in January of last year, and that there were plans announced at that time to do a tour of India this year in September. Dave Meltzer says that that's not currently on the schedule. So even though they announced it last January, it's not currently on the schedule. So somebody hit me up and they said to me, and it was a very valid point. They said to me, if 10-1, which is part of 10 Sports in India, if they currently are airing Raw, SmackDown, and the pay-per-views for free, how does WWE intend to make money in India which is why Jinder was given this push out of the blue. And that's a very valid point, right? So the first thing we need to say is there's no guarantee this is going to work. This is a shot in the dark. And WWE, I think, knows that. They knew putting the title on Jinder when he was enhancement talent for 8 months, it's a risk, and it might not work. And you never know, within 6 months, he might be back to putting guys over again if it doesn't work. But the reason they did it, or how they hope to make money, number one is merchandise. They released his first T-shirt already. And I noticed that it went into the regular shop first, but within a few days, it did go into the India shop, www.shop.in. So they hope to make money with the merchandise. Now, there's a very valid point about the network. Why would people subscribe to the network if they get the pay-per-views in India for free now? Mm-hmm. And that's a very valid question. And the only answer I can give you is that right now, the major pay-per-views air live in India, which is WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and the Survivor Series are the main three. The rest of them air on tape delay because there's a massive time difference. I think they are at 4 o'clock in the morning live in India for the main ones. The B shows air on tape delay, I think, later that same day they air. So the first answer is they'd be able to get all the shows live, even though that might not be incentive because they come on so early in the morning, but they still get them all live. And then the other answer to that is that there's a lot of non-pay-per-view content on the network that shows up frequently in the top 10 every week with Bring It to the Table, Table for Three, Ride Along, whatever, and the specials, the 24 specials. So they could do all that with Jinder Mahal. They could do it, right? And that's probably what they're going to do. And so that's how they're hoping that people are going to sign up to the network. And again, it's a risk and it might not work, but that's what they're hoping is going to happen.
Thus far, it looks like Impact may have reaped the benefits of Jinder Mahal. They got to feel pretty happy that happened right before they went to India. And spoiler alert, guys, put their X Division title on Sanjay Dutt, which, a lot of people were like, sick PR move, gross. I'm like, nah, not really. Sanjay Dutt's more than worthy of being X Division champion. He probably should have been already, like a decade ago, because he was one of the big reasons why I watched it.
Did you see the message I sent you when you tweeted, congratulations, Sunday Chun? I thought for sure when I saw your tweet, oh my God, they put the Impact title on Sanjay Dutt. Like they're ripping WWE.
Funny story. I asked an Impact wrestler what they thought about the Jinder Mahal thing, and they said, well, he's a really, really hard worker, and he'll make the best of it. He has a chance of making this work, and says, and this person who works for Impact says, Mahabali Shera sucks and will never get it. And here's the crazy thing. You remember Rinka King?
Yes.
He was their champion 5.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine how much he doesn't get it now and how bad he was 5.5 years ago.
Right. Well, you know what? Jinder, by all accounts, seems like a good guy. And you don't hear anything really negative about him. Everybody likes him. And he's Canadian to boot, man. So I hope it works out for him, but we're gonna find out. Yeah. There's obviously limitations to his game currently that we've seen. Like his promos haven't been the greatest. He's decent in the ring, but he's not the greatest in the ring. So we'll see.
Yeah. What do you got next on the list, or do you?
Oh man, I have so much stuff on the list, and I know we're doing extra segments with Russo and all that, so might have to cut down. I want to talk about the television ratings.
Why?
Because I want to talk about something Brandon Howard posted on Twitter this week.
Okay, that's worth it.
Thought that was. Oh, thanks. So if it's me wanting to talk about it, what's the point? But if Brandon Howard posts something, now it's interesting. You're great. So we've talked about it before on the show, but the television ratings, obviously, they're down. And obviously, there's really no way to put a positive spin on it when you lose 300,000 viewers between, say, the 9 o'clock hour and the 10 o'clock hour on Raw, which is what happened last week. It's hard to put a positive spin on that. Those 300,000 people did not decide, I'm going to watch it all on Hulu later on. Clearly, they're losing viewers because of the content. But we've talked about the changing television landscape. And it is different now. People are cutting the cord. People are turning to streaming options like Hulu and the network and illegal services and stuff like that. Brandon Howard posted a chart on Twitter showing TV viewing habits by age demographic from Q1 2011 to Q3 2016. And I thought this was very telling, and this is concerning for WWE, or if they're not aware of it, they should be concerned. So when you look at the youngest demos, the 12 to 17 age demo and the 18 to 24 age demo, In Q1 of 2011, they were each watching between 25 and 27 and a half hours a week of television. That's in Q1 of 2011. Now, by Q3 of 2016, they were both averaging 15 hours a week in television viewing, meaning that they're both down by over 10 hours a week. Every other age demo on Brandon's chart is down in TV viewing from 2011 to now, except for the 65-plus demo. The 65-plus demo has gone up. Where this is an issue for WWE is, number one, WWE's average viewer right now is in the early 40s, so they're already getting older. Number two, 37% of their audience, this was as of 2015, I believe, 37% of their audience is over 50. 44% of their audience is in that 18 to 49 demo, which is the one that's desirable to advertisers. But the problem is with TV viewing patterns changing, the different TV landscape, dwindling interest in the product, and the TV audience aging in terms of younger people that are completely dropping off. In 10 years, where are they going to find their new viewers? If those people are completely dropping off and their current audience is aging, in 10 years, where are they going to find their audience?
It doesn't help that they bring back people from 15, 20 years ago that beat up all the guys they have now, because perception is reality in wrestling. It's okay if you do that every once in a while, but when it's all the time, that's a problem. And I don't know where it's going to come from. I don't see as many younger viewers, a younger engagement as before. I don't.
I mean, there isn't. I mean, it's factual that it isn't. You know, in the past, they always talked about how wrestling is cyclical, right? And it has its peaks and it has its valleys. And the 80s was a peak, and the 90s, late 90s was a peak. Who knows if something's going to click? Maybe they'll have the right character come along, the right storyline come along, and it'll click with that younger audience. That better happen, because if that doesn't happen,
to me, I think they need to stop trying to make them the brand, the marquee, and let individual stars break out.
Right. And we've talked about that too, about how in the 90s when Vince was a little more desperate because of competition, he let guys have more freedom. But now that there really is no competition, he's handcuffed everybody. And you're seeing the results of it. Obviously, as fans of the product, as fans of wrestling, we want things to succeed. And so I hope that they do click with the right character and with the right storyline so that things can change. But it is a little concerning because, again, 10 years from now, if their average now is in the 40s, maybe 10 years from now, the average is going to be in the 50s. At that point, you're no longer in the desirable demo for advertisers, which means USA Network is not going to pay you as much on a TV rights contract. So
CM Punk was the guy that they had that broke out into the mainstream, was getting coverage from everybody after that promo.
Right.
And what they do, they immediately had him lose to Triple H. He probably... The entire summer, like, he should have won that title and probably never lost it until when he did eventually really lose it. There shouldn't have been the Del Rio, the Cena, the Triple H thing. It should have been probably just CM Punk that whole time. They should have really capitalized on that. And he could have had a heel turn there, but they wanted to make the brand bigger, and it's a bummer.
Why don't we hit the nicknames?
Let's do it. The nicknames.
Let's do it, man.
This is a stupid song. It just goes on and on. You might find some meaning, but you would be wrong.
I get so tired of this big dog shit.
So, first off, once again, I'm going to do this every week. I want to thank Trevor Strong for the usage of that song on the little intro. Go to trevorstrong.org to check out his work. And I also want to credit Gigi at Guzzo-Matic because he came through again, man. He came through again. And I am going to send you that signed Edge book. I got your address, and I'm going to send you a copy. So he got me nickname usage for WWE Raw this week. And then I'm going to give you a few examples because I like to do that. So there were a total of 75 examples of nicknames being used on Raw. 75.
Wow.
Big Dog was said 13 times, the Boss 9, the Architect 7, the Gentleman 6. Those were the main ones that were used. And who said it the most? Who do you think?
Corey Graves.
Corey Graves and Michael Cole, 29 times each.
Ooh. Well, I think maybe a little bit of that is because Corey Graves is involved in other stuff on the show.
Right.
Had he been there a little bit more, maybe he would have got it.
Very possible. Very possible. Now, I asked Gigi at Guzzo-Matic to do something extra for me this week. I wanted him to count how many times Michael Cole says either champion or championship. Because as you know, the commentators are a little handcuffed, Sean. They're not supposed to say belt anymore. I can't recall if they're allowed to say title still. But they're handcuffed on the words that they're allowed to use, which means that he doesn't have a lot of choice. So I wanted to know, in a 3-hour Raw show, Michael Cole said champion or championship 32 times. Okay? Now, I broke it down. I did a little bit of math, Sean. There is typically 15 minutes of commercial time in every 1 hour of television. That's on average. That means that there's 45 minutes of airtime per hour, right? On average. That means that if you take into account 10 minutes of overage on Raw, because they usually go a little over the 11 o'clock hour, that means that there's about 145 minutes of airtime per week on Raw, right?
Yes.
That means that every 1.9 minutes of Raw airtime, they used a nickname, right? Every 1.9 minutes. And every 4.5 minutes, Michael Cole said champion or championship. And if you put that into perspective, I mean, not every match is a championship match. Matter of fact, most of them aren't.
Correct.
And yet every 4.5 minutes he's saying that, and every 1.9 minutes they're saying one of the nicknames. So
It's the shove it down your throat way of WWE these days. It's just
it is. Now, I have a few examples because this is the fun part, Sean. This is the part that you look forward to the most every week. Is when I have
forward to it?
You absolutely do. Sean hits me up on like Saturday night saying, "Hey, how many nickname examples have you written down so far?" And I have to keep telling him, "Dude, Raw's not till Monday, so you got to wait."
Somebody brought up a good point. They don't even have a world title on the show right now.
That's true too. Yes, they do not. So here's some good ones. So this is from Michael Cole. Rich Swann loves to have fun, but boy, is he competitive.
Who doesn't love to have fun?
I don't know. Then when Alexa Bliss came out, Michael Cole said, and he yelled this one, 5 feet of fury. That was good. Then when Jack Gallagher was starting to make his comeback, Michael Cole said, critical point in the match for the gentleman.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Then when it came time to the main event, as you just alluded to, Corey Graves said, the architect is in the big dog sights, he said. And the last one comes from Roman Reigns himself. Roman Reigns said, I only care about showing that I am the big dog and why this is my yard. Do you think a time is ever going to come, and we've talked about this before, is a time ever going to come when the light switch goes on in the head of Roman Reigns and he realizes I am of value to this company, they're building this brand around me, I don't have to say this shit? Is that time ever going to come with him, or do you think he just doesn't really get it?
I don't know.
Because let me tell you
tough.
something. If he doesn't have the creativity and the insight to recognize how stupid that shit is, he's not going to succeed as the top guy. Because when you look at the guys that have succeeded, like The Rock and Steve Austin and John Cena, they would never go for that bullshit. Are you kidding me?
Correct.
They would never go for that bullshit. If Roman Reigns is going to continue to say that crap in promos when he's clearly the top guy, is he ever going to figure it out?
It goes right back to the matter of somebody being big enough to say no, and he is. I don't think
Absolutely.
Maybe he doesn't realize he is, but valuing the brand over the name, when in reality the names make the brand, and they want it to be the other way so badly. Of course, the brand helps make the name, but the name can always become bigger.
Right. Now, I want to tell you a funny story. At one point, we were watching the Triple Threat match on Monday with Finn Balor, Samoa Joe, and Bray Wyatt, and my wife and I were joking about, man, this is refreshing. This has been like 10 minutes. What are you looking at? You're still in the hospital?
Yeah.
So we were looking at that Triple Threat match, and we thought, this is refreshing. It's been like 10 minutes. They haven't used any nicknames. And then we realized, oh, yeah, it's because Finn doesn't currently have one, and Samoa Joe doesn't currently have one.
The Demon.
And they're not going to, and well, I guess. And they're not going to say the Eater of Worlds 18 times when he's the only guy with a nickname.
Yeah.
So that was refreshing. That was like a solid 10 minutes with no nickname usage. You know?
So if you eliminate that 10 minutes, boy, those averages go way up.
They go way up. They do. Now, there was one comment made on the show, and you can't even really call it a nickname, but there was one comment made on the show that I actually really liked. And I want to be positive sometimes, Sean. I want to talk about positive things and not shit on the company all the time. Scott Dawson, when talking about Enzo Amore, he called Enzo Amore the tilapia of WWE. That was great. I thought that was great. Now, in case anybody doesn't know, tilapia is a bottom-feeding fish, and they're known to eat shit, literally. And so that's what he called Enzo Amore, the tilapia of WWE, and I thought that was awesome.
Do you think that they'll explain that on the air?
He did say bottom feeder. He did say he's the tilapia of WWE. He's a bottom feeder.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Do you realize that a lot of chicken farms now keep the chicken pens over water, and they also double as tilapia farms because when the pigeons shit in their cages, it goes in the water, and that's what the tilapia
You mean the chicken?
eats.
When the chickens?
What did I say?
Pigeons.
I'm sorry, chickens. Yeah, maybe there's pigeon farms too.
Maybe.
But when the chickens shit, yeah, it goes in the water, and that's what the tilapia eat. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
That's
I
a
didn't know
fact.
that tilapia eat shit either.
They do. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
The more you know.
Yep. So, yeah, that's it. Oh, and one other point I wanted to bring up. We've spoken a couple of times on the show about how Booker T doesn't tend to say the nicknames.
Correct.
Right? He said one thing, and I thought it was interesting. So this was during the Cruiserweight tag, and Graves and Cole had said King of the Cruiserweights a few times, right? Mm-hmm. And you know Booker T, I think Booker T is almost going out of his way not to say the stupid nicknames.
Yes.
So Booker T said, and I'm going to read this, he said, you can tell that Neville is the alpha of the Cruiserweight division, in my opinion. So he didn't want to say King of the Cruiserweights. So he chose to...
Did he say, you can tell, in my opinion? Because...
Yes, he did.
That is an oxymoron.
It's Booker T, man. He's not a... He's
That's
not
a good point.
You know, he's not a scholarly educated, university educated man. But I thought it was interesting that he put Neville over as being kind of like the king of the cruiserweights without saying he's the king of the cruiserweights.
Yeah. Well,
So-
Booker T has been around for decades and knows how to get people over when he's talking about them. So
It's true. It's true. Now, I think we need to talk next about Stephanie McMahon
why?
because the Kurt Angle, Corey Graves storyline,
Oh, yeah.
I got to tell you, man, when I saw Corey Graves go to Kurt Angle on Raw and Kurt read that text message.
You just made me unexcited for this storyline because initially I was like, this is cool. And then now that you got me thinking, oh, of course.
As soon as Kurt read the message, and there's one quote, he said, the text message said that Kurt is a disgrace and embarrassment to the WWE, and he besmirched his reputation as an Olympic gold medalist. When I first heard that, the first thing that came to mind was William Regal,
Yes.
because I thought besmirched, right?
Yes.
But then when I thought about it a little bit more, and I thought about the fact that Corey Graves is the one that got the text message, and Corey Graves is kind of positioned as a kiss ass on television, I thought to myself, shit, this is going to be their way of bringing Stephanie back to television so that she can now be little Kurt. And it's probably going to lead to Kurt having a match at SummerSlam. Mm-hmm. There's probably going to be something that leads to a match at SummerSlam. And that really kind of bummed me out because I don't think I'm alone in saying this. We do not need Stephanie McMahon back on television.
Nope.
Her character is tired. Her character is condescending. Her character is a heel that never gets her comeuppance. We do not need her back on television. And if that is where they're going, which is where I think they're going, we don't need it.
It's funny because the last time I said that, somebody said Vicky got her comeuppance. I was like, yeah, and then she was never on the show again. Vicky Guerrero's last appearance ever. And then this Seth Rollins thing, kind of. But that was to write her off of TV. That wasn't to like...
Well, the only reason that Vicky got to throw Stephanie in the pudding is because in real life, Vicky Guerrero is one of the most respected people in WWE. Everybody loves Vicky Guerrero, and Stephanie did that out of respect to Vicky on her last night.
By the way,
That's why she
guys,
did.
if you want some Vicky Guerrero content, I did a Fightful Books It last week of Aiden English, who is Vicky Guerrero's son-in-law now. And Vicky's involved in that angle that I push. So go check that out over on our podcast page.
Good plug, man. Good plug. So what do you think? Do you think this is where they're going? Do you think that Stephanie's going to be returning now and they're going to do the Kurt versus Stephanie thing?
Probably, now that you mention it, but I hope
it looks
not.
like it to me.
But I hope not, because it's a really interesting.
Hey, you know how Hunter likes to plug himself into big storylines and big matches. I'm wondering if it's going to lead to Kurt versus Triple H at SummerSlam.
I would be okay with that match. I'm sure it would be a really good match.
The match would be good, yeah. But because it looks like the way they're positioning it is Vince is the one that brought Kurt back, and Stephanie's the one that wants to be in charge. So it makes sense storyline-wise that there would be that conflict. But again, all that's going to happen is Stephanie's going to belittle him. She's going to yell at him. She's going to slap him in the face. And he's going to be able to do nothing but stand there and take it. And it's tired and it's overdone, and I don't want to see it.
Yeah, here's a little thing on my list this week.
Yeah.
WWE edited the entire This Is Your Life portion of the Alexa Bailey promo out of their YouTube clip. We have a story up on Fightful.com right now.
It was really bad.
It was terrible.
And you know what? You can say the whole making chicken salad out of chicken shit thing. Alexa was given such bad material. She tried her best. I think Alexa's actually solid when it comes to promo work. And she tried her best, but they gave her such crap that what could she do? I mean, she was completely shit on. She was able to stifle the what chance pretty good. But that was such an awful, terrible segment. I'm glad they pulled it out of their. No one needs to see that again. I'm glad
never. And no. you could watch Raw on YouTube and not miss a thing.
Yep.
And with them eliminating that, man.
Yep. I want to talk about what do you consider to be a casual fan in 2017? Casual wrestling fan. The reason I want to talk about it is because Dave Meltzer had said something on his radio show last week. According to his definition, I am a casual wrestling fan.
Really?
Yes, and I found that very interesting. So he was talking about 205 Live, and he was talking about the lack of interest in the show. And he said that there are a certain number of people that are only going to watch wrestling for a couple of hours a week, and he called them casual fans. He said they might watch a couple hours of Raw, they might watch an hour of Raw and an hour of SmackDown, but he said that's going to be about it. He said the ones that watch more than that, they're going to watch NXT or they're going to watch 205 Live. Those are the more hardcore wrestling fans. But the ones that watch a couple of hours are the casual wrestling fans. I personally, because between running a company, having a family, I watch 2 to 3 hours a week max. And typically what I'll do is I'll catch highlights on YouTube, usually for SmackDown. I'll watch highlights on YouTube instead of watching the show. So what do you think? Because the television landscape has changed, as we've talked about. And so I think just because you're not watching 5 hours of television doesn't mean that you're not paying attention.
I agree.
And again, that doesn't mean that you can excuse 300,000 people dropping off the show from the 9 o'clock hour to the 10 o'clock hour. Clearly they're doing that because they're losing interest. But I think if you're only watching a couple hours, that doesn't necessarily mean you're a casual fan in today's landscape. So what do you think?
So it's funny because, I've thrown around the number of hours that I work usually in a week, at least 60, and people are like, gosh, that's a lot. Well, at least 10 of that, at least on a non-pay-per-view week, is pro wrestling.
Right.
Watching that. 3 hours of Raw, 2 of SmackDown, 1 of 205 Live, 2 of Impact, 1 of Lucha Underground, 1 of NXT. If there's a New Japan show, that's an extra 3 hours. If there's a pay-per-view, that's an extra 4 hours at least.
Yep.
Then TNA will have some stuff, or Impact will have some stuff too. That's even before you get into MMA. And each one of those shows, 5-6 hours long.
Yep.
If I could, I would watch Raw on YouTube. Or I would watch it on Hulu. But I would still consider myself a pretty hardcore viewer of wrestling, even though I would maybe in all watch 45 minutes of that program and maybe 30 minutes of SmackDown.
Right.
So, I would still consider myself a hardcore fan. I would watch all of NXT because it's an hour long. Well, 45 minutes when you fast forward through entrances and stuff. Yeah, I think that's tough to say because, I know a lot of people who just are really religious followers of wrestling who just don't watch that many hours of wrestling.
Yeah. I consider myself to be that person. I think that it's kind of an old school way of thinking to think that if you're not watching the television show, then you're not a fan, or that you're a casual fan. I know what's going on with everything. I mean, I'm not a big New Japan guy, but I know what's going on with NXT. I know what's going on with 205. I know what's going on with Raw and SmackDown. I keep tabs a little bit on Impact and on Ring of Honor. I know what's going on, but there just aren't enough hours in the day or in the week to watch them all. So
correct, absolutely. And they're talking about adding a UK show regularly, possibly a women's show regularly.
A women's show, right?
And if you do that, I don't know how you could keep main event on unless you have international distribution deals.
Right. Right. It's way too much content. They're producing way too much.
Well, their line of thinking was, people like this independent UK wrestling, we'll do our own. They like Shimmer and Shine. We'll give them our own Shimmer and Shine. They like Best of the Super Juniors. We'll give them Best of the Super Juniors every single week. That's their way of thinking. And yeah, and also something that Brandon Howard had asked me about today. They were like, George Barrios said, we announced the deal with ICW last week. And Brandon's like, did they announce a deal with ICW last week? I said, no, they didn't. They said they're sending Noam Dar there. They've sent Finn Balor there. But I think Barrios maybe kind of let a cat out of the bag there that maybe he wasn't supposed to.
Now, Finn Balor, they used that for his special, right?
Yes, they did. They did.
So maybe they're going to do another kind of special, and they're going to include footage from that or something.
For Noam Dar?
Well, maybe not for Noam Dar, but maybe about like the international market, or maybe about the cruiserweight division or something.
Noam Dar is like one of the only reasons that I wish that Fox Sports would have taken the broadcast rights to WWE. That way we could hear him say live on Fox every week.
Awesome. So should we go to a new segment there, man?
No, nobody wants to see it.
Nobody wants to. I know. There's no interest in this whatsoever.
There's no interest in it. Okay, so last week, Vince Russo was the subject of Sean Waltman, X-Pac, who said that Val Venus was pitched for DX by Vince Russo. Now, Vince Russo, when I spoke to him, said he didn't particularly remember that, but he doesn't doubt it at all, because Sean Waltman has like a notoriously good memory. Like he's got a pretty vivid memory if you ever listen to his podcast, his interviews. But Vince did say that he had originally pitched for the New Age Outlaws to be in DX, and it didn't go down so well. So let's check that.
I'm sexy. And then I'm your sexy boy. I'm not the boy.
And now returning to Fightful.com, the one, the only, Vincent Russo.
Sean Ross Sapp, I never thought I'd say this in my entire lifetime, but I missed you, brother. I miss you. I miss talking to Sean Ross Sapp, bro.
I definitely expected you to say that.
Oh, okay. All right.
I definitely expect you to say that. Now, we're going to be telling some stories throughout each week here on The List and Your Boy, and we're very glad to have you here. Were there ever any considerations that you remember, whether it be from you or anybody else, to add people to D-Generation X?
Bro, here's what I remember the most, bro, and I love this. I remember, bro, first of all, I have to give credit to, a lot of people, Vince takes credit for everything, which is absolute bull crap, bro. It's their narrative. I got to give all the credit in the world for, Road Dogg, Brian, Jesse James, and Badass Billy Gunn. Bro, Vince McMahon pitched that to me when we had Triple H, Chyna, and Shawn as DX. Vince, one day in a creative meeting, pitched to me that Brian James and Billy Gunn join them. Bro, I looked at Vince like he was out of his mind. I did not see that. I mean, bro, where they were that time at the card, they were certainly not up to the level of, Shawn, Hunter, and Chyna. So, I thought Vince was freaking nuts. But, Vince wanted to do it, so we did it. The next thing I had to do, bro, was I had to sell Shawn and Hunter. Bro, they wanted no part of those guys. Absolutely no part. They felt those guys were beneath them. They felt those guys were going to bring DX down, which is why we did all the stuff with the New Age Outlaws on their own first. It was almost like an audition, bro, and they had to prove themselves to Triple H and Shawn, and then when they finally did and the time was right, we brought them into the fold. But yeah, bro, that was a Vince pitch, and I got to tell you, I did not see that at all.
So this had been in the cards for a while, obviously before Shawn left, because they debuted with DX the next day.
Yes.
What would have happened had Shawn maybe hung around?
Well, you know, bro, here's the funny thing. Like, I'll never forget Vince saying this to me at the time, and he was dead on. Bro, this was a time when WCW was taking all the talent from the WWE. I mean, this was, Scott and, and Kevin and Piper showed up there and Rick Rude. Like, every week it was somebody else. But those guys were veterans. And I remember Vince turned to me and he goes, Vince, we got all these young guys here. We got all this untapped talent. We need to use our young guys to combat those veterans. So, that had a lot to do with giving those two guys the opportunity.
So you mentioned that Shawn and Hunter weren't on board. Was Shawn expected to stick around after WrestleMania by the time you all had pitched this?
I think he was, bro. I think he was. It was always, Shawn, I swear it was. I and I've said this before, bro. I never, ever saw anybody stand up to Vince McMahon the way Shawn Michaels did. Shawn just did not care what he said to Vince. And of course, bro, you fast forward 20 years later, Shawn's a totally different guy now. And Shawn would tell you I was the biggest prick back then because, bro, he was under the influence of, a lot of things at the time. But, bro, it was such a freaking touchy situation with Shawn. He would tell Vince, F you, to his face. I mean, that's how Shawn was. A lot of times I found myself in the middle of it. Bro, Shawn threatened me once. So it was like dynamite, bro. Shawn wasn't a sure thing at that time. And like I said, bro, I think a lot of it had to do with he was under the influence of some stuff where he just wasn't in the right mind a lot of times,
Interesting.
Imagine in 2017 if Finn Balor walked up to Vince McMahon and looked him in the eye and said, "Fuck you."
Yeah.
What do you think would happen if that happened in 2017?
Well, I think the closest we've had to that is Dave Bautista's run, and how long did that last?
Yeah, someone tells me Dave Bautista probably didn't have that kind of attitude in terms of the way that he would talk to Vince.
Yeah. But, I mean, he did go out there and say, I don't like this. This is stupid.
I mean, I think guys still do that now. I'm sure that Cena's done that. I'm sure the only one that hasn't, like we talked about, is Roman Reigns. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of other guys. I want to ask you, what do you think of that video intro?
It's fantastic. I knew that we had to use that remix theme. I got to give credit to whoever made the song, too. I'm going to find out who did that, but that's fantastic. It's almost as impressive as me in one single jump, because I am Box Jump Jesus, made it from Toronto to Ewing, Kentucky.
You did, and you're less wet. That means that you must have beaten your time.
Well, here's the thing, Jimmy. I jumped, so the wind just dried me off as It's that brisk Canadian air.
I got it.
It's chilly up there in the atmosphere.
Wasn't there a movie with, I think, Hayden Christensen where he was able to jump between worlds or something?
Jumper?
That might have been it.
I think I watched it. I think I watched that in the theater.
Yeah, that might have been it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're somehow channeling him.
Hey, 31 years old, have a box jump like that, I got to say.
I thought you're 32.
I'll be 32 this year.
Ah, okay.
August 30th. What are you getting me for my birthday?
Continued employment.
Hey, I'm cool with that. I like my job.
No, we'll see, man, because that's not far off from our anniversary with the site.
Oh, so it's a couple months.
Yeah, it's not far. So I might maybe what I'll do is maybe I'll finally send you that Fightful.com your boy T-shirt that you can get prowrestlingtees.com/Fightful. Maybe I'll send you one of those.
You should. You should.
Yeah.
Actually, in 1 month, it'll be a year since Fightful launched.
Yeah, I still kind of look at August as
Yeah.
the, because technically we did go live in July, but it was like in beta. There was a lot of glitches.
Yeah,
we wanted
it
to be
was-
some UFC 200 at the time.
It was something that I was particularly pushing. I was like, if we're running this kind of site, we gotta have some content up the week that Brock Lesnar is fighting. It made too much sense.
And what's amazing about that is that means that we're almost a year since Brock fought Mark Hunt.
Yeah.
Almost a year. Can you believe that already?
Suspension will be up pretty soon too.
Do you think he's going to fight again?
Well, his suspension will be up, and then at WrestleMania next year, his contract is up. Bellator's throwing a bunch of that money around. I guarantee you Bellator will at least make an offer.
Don't you think? Now, I don't want to turn this into an MMA podcast again, but it's Brock Lesnar. So don't you think that he announced his retirement again to make it easier to come back because of the loophole with USADA? That's what happened before.
Yes.
So anybody that doesn't know, that's not a fan of MMA, when Brock came back for his fight last year against Mark Hunt, he was able to find a loophole with drug testing because he had retired before. And they have a loophole for guys that have retired. There's not as long of a time that you have to be tested before you have your next fight. Brock, this time around, announced his retirement again, even though people have said they think he might fight again. So I think he did that intentionally again so that if he wants to fight again, he can have less time for testing.
To explain that, people who had left the UFC, whether they had been released, fired, cut, or retired before UFC agreed to the USADA deal, they could not be held contractually to UFC's new USADA deal. It's not fair. That'd be like if it's just not fair. You can't have somebody agree to something they never agreed to. And when he came back, he was able to get in on that. But now what they've done is they've changed that. Now if to a degree. Because now you have to go through a 4-month, you always had to go through a 4-month waiting period. If you take yourself out of the pool, if the UFC fires you, then you have that little bit of wiggle room. You don't have to go through the 4-month thing. Because Angela Hill got fired by the UFC, then re-signed, and they tried to make her wait, and everybody was like, well, that's not fair. She didn't take herself out of the pool. GSP's a good example. He entered himself into the pool when he didn't have to, then took himself back out, and then he had to wait the 4 months again. It's kind of confusing, but if Brock Lesnar were to come back now, he has since signed a contract that said, well, I've removed myself from the USADA pool, and he would have to undergo that 4 months. If he went to Bellator, he would not.
Now, did they ever announce what the substance was, like what it was that he was caught for? Because he failed the drug test.
Clomiphene.
And was that a supplement?
Same thing John Jones failed for.
A sexual aid?
It's clomiphene.
Okay. I don't know what that is.
It's the same thing. John Jones said it was in some tainted, like, knockoff Chinese Viagra or something.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
I thought Brock said it was some kind of a foot cream or something.
They'll say about anything.
I know. I want to talk about Nia Jax for a minute. Actually, you know what? Let's go back to Vince Russo first for a minute.
Sure.
So Vince said in the Clip Weird this week on Monday that he reached out to Vince McMahon over the last week about coming back and that Vince has gotten back to him. But, of course, Russo didn't go into any more detail. I personally think that it's never going to happen because Triple H is now bringing his guys in and Stephanie as well. And I don't think Russo is going to fit that whole thing. What are your thoughts? Do you think that there's any chance Vince Russo could ever return to WWE in a creative capacity?
I don't, and I think that if something was in the works, he wouldn't have told me.
Right. And the other way to look at it too is when he tried to go back that one time in the early 2000s, and there was a conflict, I think, with him and Stephanie, and there were 25 writers by that point, and it just wasn't the right fit. If anything, it's worse now. You know?
Yeah.
So I
Stephanie's not involved in creative now, so that
no, she's
could
not.
be.
But in terms of the number of writers, and Hunter oversees creative with Vince now, with Vince McMahon. So I think it'd be very tough.
You know, the funny thing is, it seemed like the worst thing ever when Stephanie was in control of creative back then.
Yeah.
And compared to now, I'm like, damn. Kind of miss those days of those great Los Guerreros promos and cool stuff
but
like that.
Bruce Pritchard has acknowledged that Stephanie really had nothing to do with creative when she was managing
absolutely.
creative. Didn't come up with storylines. Didn't come up with any angles. I don't even think that she approved the script. She was just the conduit between Vince and the writers. So whatever. Let's talk about Nia Jax.
Well,
now
I just want to. Sorry, before we get into that, I just wanted to mention this week's Raw viewership hits another 2017 low. 2.613.
Right.
Thanks to Alex Palowski for that info.
Yeah. I mean, again, on top of everything we've talked about, whether it be the changing landscape of TV viewership, whether it be streaming, whether it be whatever, the fact is that the interest is dwindling, and that's reality. And like we talked about, they need to find that next big storyline, that next big character. I don't think Roman Reigns is going to be that guy, at least not in his current form. He's not going to be that guy. So they need to find that next big Stone Cold. They need to find that next DX or the next NWO, and hopefully they do. You know?
Yeah.
So hopefully they do. I want to talk about Nia Jax because I think we saw this week with Donald Trump how when you're in the public eye, Twitter and any kind of social media, I think, is bad news. I cannot believe Donald Trump is on Twitter. Obama knew better. But this is not about Trump or Obama. This is about Nia Jax. WWE is very political, as we've talked about. And WWE is very anal about how they want you to act and how they want you to speak and what they want you to say. Nia Jax posted a tweet on May 30th. This was after SmackDown aired. And on SmackDown, they announced that they're going to have the first ever Money in the Bank women's ladder match, which is great. It's great for the women's wrestlers. Nia Jax posted on Twitter, "Wow, first ever Money in the Bank women's ladder match. Amazing how SmackDown Live uses their entire women roster every Tuesday." Does she not realize that saying that means she's going to be on Raw even less, or she's going to be jobbed out the next time that they have her on television? Does she not realize that that's probably going to be the repercussions of doing that?
If she was better, maybe she'd be used more. She is one of those people that you can look at, and she's almost like the anti-Damian Sandow. She's given a character, and she doesn't jump all the way into it. She doesn't jump all the way into her character.
Yeah,
and I think that's hurt her a lot.
I think a lot of it comes down to somebody. I don't know if it was Alex that said this on Monday or maybe Hawkins on Tuesday about how Paul Heyman's thing used to be accentuate the strengths, hide the negatives, right? And when you look at Nia Jax and when you look at Shinsuke Nakamura is another one, promos are not their strength. Shinsuke Nakamura should not be cutting promos on SmackDown. Nia Jax should not be cutting promos on Raw. All of this power they put into Nia Jax's character, making her look like this dominant force, and then they give her the mic and she sounds like a valley girl from Southern California. It kills the character, and that's not her fault. That's Vince McMahon or Triple H or whoever failing to recognize that is a weakness in her. But that does not excuse her for being stupid on social media, and she should have learned that by now in today's wrestling landscape. The company doesn't like it when you do that. And if you're not John Cena, if you're not Roman Reigns, if you're not, I don't know, who you consider to be the top guys now on SmackDown?
I don't know, but Dolph Ziggler's done it before, and it's not worked out well for him. Zack Ryder's done it, not worked out well for him. I'm sure there are a couple here and there, like Heath Slater has begged and begged for chances, and he got a little push, but it wasn't from that, and it was well after that.
Right, it's different. Yeah, it's different. And it's not like she did that in storyline because they're not going to be doing a feud with anybody from SmackDown. She did that because she was venting on social media. And you just can't do that. You got to be smarter than that. That's not going to get you ahead in the company. And that's just how it is. One more thing on my list this week. I want to tell Billy Corgan, who I know doesn't watch this podcast and will probably never hear this, but I want to tell Billy Corgan this whole snag with your purchase of the NWA is a blessing. It is somebody trying to tell you don't buy it, walk away. I want to say that to him. So anybody that isn't familiar, Billy Corgan has been in negotiations to acquire the NWA trademarks and part of the video library. Some of it's from the Houston library and the on-demand service. And it came out that there is some red tape with that they're trying to get over because of the trademarks. I guess the trademarks lapsed last year. And so they're having trouble converting them to him because of that. This is a sign, okay? It's a waste of your money. Do not buy the NWA. Let it go. Walk away. Do something else. Make an album. Go make an album. Do not buy the NWA.
I couldn't agree more. I don't know what value there is in the NWA in 2017, and especially beyond.
I mean, I heard that Lagana, because Lagana's working with him, and I heard that he has been traveling around to whatever promotions they have left that are still licensing the NWA name to start to build that relationship. To today's wrestling fans that are left, the NWA is a tainted brand. It represents old school, and it represents the old way of thinking about pro wrestling.
They're champions 52.
Yeah, like it's a tainted brand. It is not in 2017 what it was in 1985.
And the thing is, he's not a 52-year-old that's like got a name. He's a 52-year-old you've never heard of, Tim Storm.
Right.
He's a 52-year-old that I'm like wondering. I'm like, how did he get this? Because I've seen his work. It's not good.
Yeah, he's got to let it go. Let it go, man. Move on. Go on vacation or something, or I don't know, buy a new car. Just move along. Find something else to get your attention on, and forget about the NWA. I wanted to ask you, man, how did your play-by-play gig go?
It went pretty good. I
didn't hear anything about it. I haven't seen it. Like, how was that?
It's on flowcombat.com. It was Premier MMA Championship. It was standing room only at the Radisson Riverfront in Covington, Kentucky, so just across the river from Cincinnati. It was good. I worked with a guy who hadn't done a lot of commentary before. So, I mean, I like stuff like that. I like challenges like that because even though I've not done it, I don't do it every weekend, I'm able to teach people stuff and learn myself, and I can figure out what works and what doesn't work. And it was really cool. Saw a couple of guys that I know are going to be in the UFC eventually.
That's cool.
That's pretty cool. A lot of familiar faces and some local... Some familiar faces like local celebrities from the Cincinnati area. Reds weren't in town, so none of them were there. Bummer.
Did you start the broadcast by saying "What's up, you guys"?
I don't remember.
Did you end the broadcast by saying "Until next time, we're out"?
No, because the production people didn't give me a cue for when we were ending, and I just noticed the mics went mute.
Oh shit! So there was no goodbye, like nothing.
They ended it. I was like, y'all got to give me a signal. And I said that. I was like, hey, guys, hit me with a signal. And
how many times did you mention Fightful.com on the air?
I think 2 or 3 times.
Good.
And the fight, the Premier MMA Championships named their submission of the night, the Fightful.com submission of the night. So
are you kidding? Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Billy Donovan, guy I know who... a lot of you will know some of my work from Cage Passion Media, which is basically like what I was using to dabble in sports and all kinds of different stuff, and got my start with podcasting and things like that. He ran that initially before turning it over to me. Also did Absolute Action MMA, where I did commentary for a long time. But yeah, hey,
it's all right.
Billy Donovan, show me the money, buddy. You had a packed house.
How busy? How many people?
I don't know. It was standing room only, though.
More
than expected. I can say that. It was a beautiful venue too. I loved that sort of ballroom or whatever they had it in. It looked really nice. I liked it.
So I don't subscribe to Flow Slam. So you're gonna have to show me the footage somewhere.
Flow Combat, but it's
Flow Combat, whatever.
Pretty expensive, as we told David Tease this week.
You know what? I don't want to see. I don't like to see business ventures fail. I don't like to see people out of jobs. But I told Sean when I first heard about the Flow concept that I didn't think it was going to work. Yeah. And now they've raised the price because I don't think they're making any money. So that's why they raised the price.
Well, they did it for Flow Slam because it was an individual thing, and they don't want the individual. But it's because it wasn't selling enough individuals. If that's the case. And David Tease has said, I want to help step up indie coverage. And I said, buddy, I'm all for it, man. And he asked about getting Flow Combat, like comped and stuff. And I was like, we had nobody in our live viewing parties for Evolve. We did them all the time because we thought we have a show with Matt Riddle. People are going to want to be here, support him. It was crickets.
Yeah.
We have people that show up at 5:30 in the morning for New Japan ones. And they weren't showing up at 4 in the afternoon for Evolve. And I love watching Evolve. I love a lot of the stuff on Flow Slam. I loved Joey Janela's Spring Break for all the mess that it was.
Did you hear what he did, Joey Janela?
What did he do?
He put up a jokey GoFundMe saying that he wants to buy the Mid-South Coliseum. And he was asking, and here's what's funny about it. So he was asking for $7 million to not just buy the Coliseum, but there was other stuff that he was going to buy, including Brian Christopher.
And Twizzlers, probably.
But here's the funny thing. So he said in his notes he was looking for $7 million, but the little thing on the top where they have the dollars, he actually put $700 million.
I see that they've taken that down. I'll have to do a story on that or have Alex do it because I feel like he could do it more justice than I.
You probably could. The A-Train thing, it's good. It's good what he does with that, yeah.
I love that. I think that makes him like indispensable because I could hire or you could hire a lot of people to be my associate editor, but the fact that he's able to take some of this ridiculous stuff and make it a little bit different, I think that's cool because there are a lot of headlines we've gotten from his work that you wouldn't be able to get anywhere else. So that's
true. You know, this is the first time for you video viewers. This is the first time that I've had a good look at your Jeff Jarrett guitar because normally it's farther back in your shot.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that your Jeff Jarrett guitar has a picture of Jeff Jarrett holding a guitar. I didn't realize
laser engraved on it.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I thought it just had a signature. I didn't realize it's actually got Jeff Jarrett holding a guitar.
I don't know if it even does have a signature. No, it's just him laser engraved.
Isn't that just terrific? Isn't that terrific? Global Force Wrestling.
Maybe
kudos.
he's not. He might not be happy with me. I don't know. He didn't. He usually. Well, he might be in India, but
he's in India.
I sent him a message asking if Jesse Goddard was still with the company because he hasn't been on a taping since early January.
It's like a 12-hour time difference. He's probably not going to worry about it until he gets back.
Nah, yeah, but that's one guy. Even though Jesse Goddard isn't like a big star or anything, I'm like, if you all are keeping some of these guys, you should probably keep him because it's insane. Like, you don't understand the Big Brother reach,
right?
Until you like, I saw him at the Arnold Classic and thought there were women about ready to throw their panties at him. It was insane.
Really?
Oh, it was nuts. It was nuts, man.
I don't think I could pick him out of a lineup. I'm not sure I could.
I wouldn't have been able to before TNA either.
Yeah. Well, I guess in other positive news, I plan to be here next Wednesday.
Yeah, you got the birth scheduled tomorrow. Yeah,
Jimmy Jr.'s coming tomorrow.
Inmates are running the asylum in Toronto.
They're going to be. By this time tomorrow, we're taping this on Wednesday, and it's about 4:30 Eastern time. By this time tomorrow, I will be the father to a new baby boy, and Jimmy Jr. is coming tomorrow, meaning that next Wednesday I plan on coming back to do this podcast because I love talking to you, Sean. This is one of the highlights of my week is looking at that pretty face and your wet hair and your Jeff Jarrett guitar. So
are you gonna? Is his middle name gonna be Jam, as in Jimmy Jam Garvin? Because Jimmy Jam Van just sounds awesome.
So funny story, I'll tell you. No, you know what? I'm not going to tell you this story today because in case any of my family happens to see this, it's a little bit of a surprise.
Okay.
So I'm not going to tell you the story today. On next week's show, I will tell you the story about the middle names and the nickname that we pulled out of that. So remind me. I'll tell you.
Well, congratulations in advance for the minivan.
Thank you. And you know what's going to be cool, man? So I don't share pictures with my family very often on social media. I am going to show you a picture of my son when he's in his onesie that says, eat, sleep, poop, repeat.
Phenomenal.
Going to show you a picture of him when he's in that onesie because that's like my favorite one, the Brock Lesnar onesie.
I like how you built to next week's show. Smart.
That's what you do, man. Come on. I make good decisions, you know?
Hey, you hired me. Best decision you could make.
That's one of the ones I still question.
Even though I am a JBL-esque social justice warrior who...
Let's go on this again. So you're snarky.
Snarky.
You're snarky, and you were more respected wherever you were before. You're acting like JBL. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. You've been pretty well behaved today, aside from the fact that you tried to jump into my wife's delivery room.
I didn't like where that was going. I didn't like where that was going.
I did that
Jimmy.
on purpose. I did that on purpose. I wanted to see your face on this.
Be honest. Be honest. What was the reaction like in the office? Dude,
I'm not going to know. I am in the media room. I do not see my people.
They handed you a tablet.
They did. They did.
Was it unanimous cheering? Well, it couldn't have been. The whole place was empty.
I'm in a
Because
media
we were
room.
at the hospital, the medical facility.
Exactly. So what you're saying is Lindsay found a way to run from the hospital where she was with you here to give me this iPad, and then she went back.
Let me ask you a question. Doesn't she always find a way?
She does.
That's
She's
just
good.
putting over Lindsay right there. She
is-
always finds a way.
She's one of my most valued people here, and she knows it. So, yeah, she's
When
good.
teleportation is invented, it will be a mandate from Jimmy Van to Lindsay that gets it done.
There you go. There you go.
I'm convinced. Also, I mean, hey, for all the Sean Ross Sapp heel stuff, I don't think I've done bad for a hillbilly from Kentucky, Jimmy.
Not too bad. I mean, Ventura put you in your place a little bit. Tell you that she doesn't like how you she doesn't like how you're talking to me, and she was surprised I didn't blast you on the air. And so you've calmed down a bit since that podcast, I think.
In the business, as Shane educated me, that's what we call selling you a ticket, Ventura.
Oh, is that what it is?
You got
really?
sold a ticket on air, Ventura.
There you go.
I hate to tell you. Well, that's all we got. What? Anything else before we go?
No, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. It's felt like a very long 9 months, so I'm looking forward to tomorrow. And I know how much you love children, Sean, so I'll be sure to text you a picture.
I don't mind children. I don't want any of my own.
Okay, I thought you were more of a cat guy, and like kids stay away from me and all that.
I think our maximum is down the line. Like my wife is still in college. She's working to be a special education teacher. Once all that's settled and Fightful becomes the biggest website on earth, we may adopt someone down the road, like an older child, maybe.
That's cool. That's cool.
Maybe. It's considering, because I like to work, Jimmy. I like to work.
It definitely, you could ask Alex, it is a massive life change. There's no question about it. And ironically enough, I am way less nervous this time than I was the first time, because I feel like I'm experienced, and everybody's telling me 2 kids is so much harder. I'm not nervous at all about 2 kids.
You shouldn't be.
I'm not.
You should be more nervous about me being unsupervised for a couple of days.
Oh, no, I'll be around, man. I'm always around. Always.
Because you never know what the heel might do. Guys, until next time, we are out.